Hello! In the previous video, we learnt about the meaning of human resource planning and its features. In this, we will be discussing the process involved in HRP or the human resource planning. Well, organizations should carry out human resource planning so as to meet the business objectives and gain an advantage over competitors. To do this, organizations need a clear idea of the strengths and weaknesses of their existing internal labor force. They must also know what they want to be doing in the future. That is, what size they want the organization to be, what products and services it should be producing, and so on. Because this knowledge helps them define the number and kinds of employees they will need. So basically, human resource planning compares the present state of the organization with its goals for the future and then identifies what changes it must make in its human resources to meet these goals. The changes may include downsizing, training existing employees in new skills, or hiring new employees. Now, the process of HRP consists of 3 stages: forecasting, goal setting and strategic planning, and program implementation and evaluation. Now, beginning with the first step in human resource planning, that is forecasting. Well, in personnel forecasting, the HR professional tries to determine the supply of and demand for various types of human resources. The primary goal is to predict which area of the organization will experience labor shortages or surpluses. Forecasting supply and demand can use statistical methods or judgments. Well, statistical methods capture historic trends in a company's demand for labor. Under the right conditions, these methods predict demand and supply more precisely than a human forecaster can using subjective judgment. But many important events in the labor markets have no precedent, and when such events occur, statistical methods are of little use. And to prepare for these situations, the organization must rely on the subjective judgments of experts. Well, pooling their best guesses is an important source of ideas about the future. Let us now learn what forecasting entails. Beginning with forecasting the demand for labor. Well, after identifying the relevant job categories or skills, the planner investigates the likely demand for each. The planner must forecast whether the need for people with the necessary skills and experience will increase or decrease. And there are several ways of making such forecasts. An organization might use trend analysis, that is, constructing and applying statistical models that predict labor demand for the next year given relatively objective statistics from the previous year. These statistics are called leading indicators, that is, objective measures that accurately predict future labor demand. For example, an organization reviewing historical data may realize that every year approximately 5% of their staff retire, 6% resign, and 3% are dismissed. So using a simple trend analysis, future HR supply forecasts can be established by assuming an average reduction of internal HR supply of 14% per year. Well, the next forecasting is determining the labor supply. Well, once a company has forecasted the demand for labor, it needs an indication of the firm's labor supply. Now, determining the internal labor supply calls for a detailed analysis of how many people are currently in the various job categories or have specific skills within the organization. The planner then modifies this analysis to reflect changes expected in the near future as a result of retirements, promotions, transfers, voluntary turnover, and terminations. Now, one type of statistical procedure that can be used for this purpose is the analysis of a transitional matrix. Let us understand this with this example. In an organization, we are looking at the matrix for a manager, supervisor, and line worker and their probabilities of transition. Now, looking at this, for a line worker, there is a 20% probability of being gone in 12 months, a 0% probability of promotion to a manager, and a 15% probability of promotion to supervisor, and 65% probability of being a line worker this time next year. So these matrices are extremely useful for charting historical trends in the company's supply of labor. Well, based on the forecasts for labor demand and supply, the planner can compare the figures to determine whether there will be a shortage of surplus, and then based on the forecasts for labor demand and supply, the planner can compare the figures to determine whether there will be a shortage or surplus of labor for each category. And determining expected shortages and surpluses allows the organization to plan as to how to address these challenges. So in this video, we discussed the first step of HRP process, that is forecasting.